The Team Lally Show was previously recorded.
It's time to enter the world of real estate in Oahu with Hawaii's only true real estate radio show, the Team Lally Real Estate Show. Grab a pen and get ready to take notes. For the next full hour, Hawaii's premier real estate leader, Adrienne Lally, and Attilio Leonardi will bring you the latest in real estate news and real-world strategies on how they can guarantee to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or they'll buy it. Now, here are your hosts, Adrienne and Attilio.
Welcome to the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the Guaranteed Sold program, or we'll buy it. If you have any questions, just give us a call at 799-9596 or check us out online at teamlally.com.
Hey, everybody. Today I want to talk to you guys about fish farts. Yeah. That's where we're going.
Okay.
This part of the show, Art, Attilio's random thoughts. So you're like, Attilio, what? Fish farts? Yeah, I said it. Said it on air. So what I mean by that is I was listening to a podcast, one of my favorite podcasts called Radio Lab. The producer, the main honcho, his name is Roman Mars. And he had a story that they had produced. And it was about, I think the company, if you look it up on there, the title of the podcast was Red Herring. But the story was about they were interviewing a professor from a Swedish university. And so this is taking place in the country of Sweden. And I guess Sweden has maybe about 1,000-mile border of the ocean that across the ocean, not too far away, is Russia, the main continent of Russia. So he was telling a story of how a Russian submarine got grounded in one of their inlets. And there's tons of them. So it's, in Russia, and this was during the Cold War when everything was everybody was tense and nuclear. We had a nuclear arms race. We had an Hollywood actor as a president, Ronald Reagan. So we had, it was kind of interesting times. Thriller, Michael Jackson I think that was a number one hit at that time. Anyway, the fisherman was going out early in the morning, the Swedish fishermen, and they noticed this big, huge Russian submarine. And you got to understand, these things are about the length of a football field. They're huge. And it's pretty ominous to have one. Just imagine there was one in Pearl Harbor, Russian submarine or Chinese submarine. That'd be pretty concerning. And it wasn't something that was pre-worked out or something that they get permission for. It's just there. Just imagine like Hanama Bay. The tourists are like, oh, Korean submarine. I don't even know if Korea has a submarine. Maybe. Anyway, I think, they got two. Kimchi 1 and Kimchi 2 is the name of the Korean submarine. So they're like freaking out, saying we need to have some protection. They don't have a huge Navy. So what they did was they said, we're going to, instead of having, they were getting observations from people and people were calling in about the subs. And they were obviously getting a whole bunch of calls. And they had to create a rating system. Like 1 is like, I see the submarine. 6 is like, I see something sticking out of the water. And so they said, we're going to create a listening device because people are just too paranoid and crazy and they're seeing all kinds of stuff where there's nothing. And so they created these listening device. And so this professor got a call with his other professor that he worked with. And they were called by the Swedish military to come and hear this sound that they were recording that they were 100% sure was Russian submarines. They'd even seen one in one of their inlets, strung an iron curtain across and were dropping depth charges. So it was like pretty scary stuff, kind of like, similar to our Cuban missile crisis that Kennedy had to deal with back in the 60s. You don't know if somebody's their finger is like an inch away from the big red button that's about to start a nuclear war. So anyway, they invite these two Swedish professors to their secret Navy Swedish thing. I mean, they're describing it where like it was in water, and then you go up to the cliffs, and like the rocks open like a big gate, like Dr. Evil, like for real. This is not science fiction. They were escorted by 2 Navy captains into this big conference room with all these high-ranking officials, and they played this audio track for them that they said was Navy submarines. And with that, I would like to introduce Duke Kim Han of Hawaii Pacific Property Management, where he is not going to be talking about nuclear submarines, Russian nuclear
Or
submarines.
fish farts.
But what he's going to be...
Or what they have to do with each other.
But we'll finish this very engaging story with you later. And now on with the rest of the show. Duke, welcome to the show.
Yes.
Hey, wow, nuclear talk. Wow.
Yeah,
Pretty
nuclear
much
subs.
above my head.
Yep.
Back to real estate.
I'll make it really simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're going to buy an investment property and you have a plan that you wanted to get it rented out, wouldn't you think a good strategy is to call a property manager
Yes.
and ask them questions, especially if you don't live in Hawaii? Or if you already live in Hawaii and you're not familiar with landlord-tenant codes and all that kind of stuff, call an expert. It's really easy. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it surprises me that people from the mainland will call
Mm-hmm.
and just ask them questions about the rental market, what things are going, how's it going, how is it compared to other markets, and what can they expect out of their rental long term. So these are really, really good strategies.
Yeah.
And if you plan to be a good investor or even a good homeowner, and down the road you're going to leave the island, let's say you're in the military, you probably want to get a property manager on your team. And the services that we offer for consultation is really quick, it's free, and it's so easy. Just call up, say, hey, I just want to ask somebody what my property is worth and if I'm going to have problems renting it out. Because I just ran into a situation yesterday where I drove out to a really, really secluded property. I was very surprised how secluded it was. And it was a great property to own and live there, but to rent out,
Yeah.
I told the owner, I probably can't take your property because it's so far out of town and it's in the middle of nowhere and it's got some maintenance issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they bought that property because of the secluded area, because they wanted to be kind of off the beaten path, but now they have to move off island. I just feel terrible for them.
Yeah.
So, there's some strategies that you want to follow, and your realtor can help you with this. And one of them is asking good questions up front.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
You had mentioned that these off-island owners, they call and they ask questions. What would be your number one kind of question that you would ask or that they should ask that they're not thinking to ask?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest question, and when they're an investor, is condo versus single-family home.
Mm-hmm.
Most investors have this idea that they want to own a condo because they don't want the maintenance. I said, are you ever going to live in the place? Are you ever going to come to the island? You're going to stay in it? What's the plan? And so there's a lot of strategy involved in what your plan is long-term and short-term for an investment property. And most realtors, they study this, they know this, and they're well-versed on condo versus single-family home. But what they don't tell you is that if you're just looking at it from a strategy for money, the single-family home will outperform the condo 10 times and twice on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because of the equity, right? Equity growth.
The equity long-term,
Yeah.
plus you don't have an HOA,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have a homeowner association. You don't have a maintenance fee. You don't have somebody telling you can't play your music past this amount. You can't have more than 2 guests in the apartment. You can't park your guest cars past 24 hours and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. Can't put your surfboards on the outdoor patio. You have to use off-white blinds. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, a lot of these rules.
And I promise you, a maintenance fee will never go down.
It always goes up.
They do.
Just like inflation, taxes from the IRS.
We've even seen maintenance fees go up so much that it starts to affect the values of the homes.
Sure.
It starts bringing the values down because nobody wants to buy.
Yeah.
One quick one, Duke, was wear and tear. I think a lot of times these owners, they rent out a perfect home. But when you rent it out for 10 years, you're not going to get back a perfect home because wear and tear. What?
Not even for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to educate the owner on just what they got out of it. You know, they say, I expect to get my house back in the exact same condition.
Yeah.
As soon as I hear that in the beginning, I say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be the good fit for you as property manager.
Yeah.
Because the reality is not there. You're not going to get your house back in the same position, in the same condition.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you're charging $3,000 a month, you're going to make $36,000 times three.
Yeah.
Times three, you're going to make $100,000.
It's the cost of business, and in reality, the only property manager that's going to tell you you're going to get your home back in the same perfect condition is a property manager with a medical marijuana card.
Or one that's not being honest.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how things work,
Nope.
right?
So-
Yeah, and you know, when I tell people you're going to make $100,000, they say, "What do you mean? My mortgage is $3,000 a month." And I say, "Well, the wear and tear on the property doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
The wear and tear on the property only cares about the income that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making $100,000 in 3 years off your property, and you get a little bit of wear and tear, that's the price of doing business in property management.
Plus, you get all that the gain in the value of the home.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
mean, you're being
You
well
do.
compensated
Tax
for
write-offs.
that wear and tear.
Exactly. So, anywho.
Yep, that's it.
Thanks,
Thank
dude.
you, Duke. Okay, so you can get a hold of Duke and his team at 445-9223. Check them out online at hipacificpm.com.
All right, next up we got Bradley Maruyama from Allstate Insurance bringing us some fascinating information regarding insurance.
What's your tip of the week, Bradley?
Bradley, what you got for us?
All right, tip of the week. Earlier this week we had a team huddle with you folks and Jody. We work so closely together when we're doing these transactions. But, when you're closing on a property, the last thing is insurance. And a lot of people are just getting what's needed to suffice the loan. But when you deal with our office, we're going to give you options, and we're going to make sure that you're educated. There's a lot of people that are going to move into a townhome. And when you close on a townhome, you're only going to need the insurance for what's inside of the condo. So what they call it is walls in, the cabinets, the television, the furniture. But what people don't realize is that hurricane is not mandatory when you're closing on a townhome. So it would be good to also, get a quote or even inquire about getting hurricane insurance when you're closing on a townhome, because you're not elevated 28, 30 floors above the ground like what you would be in a condo. You're going to be on the ground floor like any other house around you.
Yeah.
So inquire about hurricane insurance when you're closing on a townhouse in Hawaii, because lo and behold, when a hurricane hits, you may not have coverage.
I always wanted to ask, does either the hurricane or your basic homeowner's insurance, does it cover like a zombie apocalypse?
No.
I'm preparing myself, but
He's
no,
ready.
it does not cover zombies.
They cover a lot of things, but not that.
Yeah, it'd be an act
But like
of
a lot of the
nature,
times
yeah.
on these townhomes, like it's going to be a blanket policy with a very large deductible. So I think what Bradley's saying is it would be wise to have your own coverage.
Yeah, the other thing too, Bradley, talk about it like when you go to rent your home or when your home goes vacant, how they need to come to you and talk about their homeowner's insurance. And why is that? Why is that?
Vacant or if it's going to go on the market?
Yeah, either vacant because it might be vacant for
Because you
a little
moved out,
bit.
you sold it, and it's vacant now.
And then the next one, hit them with if you got a tenant in it. So talk about vacant, tenant versus you living in it. What should they know about insurance, homeowners insurance?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So it's funny you say that. One of my buddies was talking about his life story, and his wife was saying, "How come we don't rent out the unit?" He goes, "Well, if you ever kick me out, I always got this place to go to." And we were kind of joking around.
Yeah.
He says, "Well, we went to therapy, and I'm finally renting it out." I said, "You got to get a new policy." So when you're living in it, meaning it's occupied, you have clothes and food there. That's a owner-occupied homeowner's policy.
Yes.
Once you rent it out for more than 30 days, you need to convert that to a landlord's policy, or some people tenant-occupied. And the big difference between it is if there is a fire or bad water damage, and your unit can no longer be rented out,
Yeah.
your landlord's policy will give you what's called rent loss insurance. So if there's a total fire, you can't rent it out for a year. We're going to pay you rent for a year until it's restored. So it's very important to reach out to your agent to let them know, hey, I'm renting out my policy now. Most property managers will reach out to us saying, hey, we need to show rent loss insurance. So that's one. Now, the other one is also a good tip. If the house is vacant for more than 60 days, okay, so there's no food, no clothing there, most carriers have the right to decline coverage for it being vacant. So you see a lot of these squatters burning down homes now. And if the house does sit vacant, there's no electricity. Even if you boarded up the windows and these squatters come in, there could be a strong possibility that your house is considered vacant and it'll void all fire coverages.
Oh, wow. So
there are policies that will cover you if your house is vacant. And when I ask the details, what considers a home vacant? No food, no clothing, no bedding.
Gotcha.
So make sure to have those conversations with your insurance agent if you plan on leaving your home vacant.
So it sounds like you guys have doghouse.
You don't have a lapse
doghouse
coverage.
Homeowners insurance, and I don't mean like insuring where the dog sleeps. I'm just saying if you get in an argument with your spouse and you're in the doghouse and you got to stay at the other unit, it's still homeowners with the doghouse. You're in the doghouse rider on the insurance. You're still covered. But if it's vacant or you're going to stick a renter in there, you need to get that updated so you don't, have a coverage gap, right?
That's right.
So,
well,
anyway.
always helpful information
Thank you so
from
much.
Bradley.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bradley.
All right, so you can get a hold of Bradley and his team at 591-8016. Check them out. We actually have them on our website, teamlally.com, under the resources tab, experts that we trust.
And so before we take the break, I'll finish up that story.
Yes, please
real
do.
Quick.
Please do.
We
need to know the ending.
So we started the story with fish farts, and then we went into nuclear submarines. So anyway, the two scientists were in this big group with all these high-ranking Swedish officials. And by the way, obviously this has all been released because it's all public information. I'm not making this up. Listen to the Radiolab episode titled Red Herring. And they said, wow, okay, that's an interesting recording. And he said, it almost sounded like like a squeaky pair of shoes walking, or like 10 Donald Ducks talking underwater, 100 meters away. Stuff. I don't know what that comes to mind. But anyway, so they started to, these were scientists that their research was listening to underwater audio, sorry. And so they went back to the laboratory and they said, that sounds like herring or fish because, herring in Sweden, the size of these schools are huge, kilometer in distance.
Like millions of them.
Billions of them.
Wow.
Billions of them. And so they went back, did the research and said, that sounds like a herring. And so with herrings, they have fish, all fish have a bladder that regulates their height within the water column. So they're not swimming up and swimming down. Just like when you jump in the water and you start floating to the surface. We don't have those types of bladders. Maybe if we drink 7 Coronas, we might sink a little bit. Wrong bladder, though. So the fish have the bladder that regulate their height in the water column. And when they want to release water, it releases out the air from the bladder through a canal that goes out their butt. So technically, it's not a fish fart because it's not coming from something they ate. It's just releasing of the gas. And they say, well, they recorded it. Nah, it doesn't sound like that. But then they recorded billions of them. Guess what it sounded like? What the military thought was Russian submarines.
But it was the fish fart.
It was fish. It was billions of fish farts. And what they also realized too was that they had sonar, which is detecting an image. And they're like, why is this submarine breaking into 2 parts, coming back together, breaking into 4 parts, coming back together? And they thought, seriously, these military people, high-ranking people, the whole military navy for Sweden, thought they had some kind of secret technology that allowed submarines to break. This is true. Radiolab, Roman Mars. The episode is hilarious. Here's the point. What is a red herring? Have you ever heard that phrase before, Adrian? A red herring?
maybe it's like something that you think it is, but it's not.
Yeah, it's like a wild goose chase. Like, hey, you get your buddies out go camping. You're like, hey, I need you to go catch us a snipe. Like, oh, what's a snipe? Here's the sound it makes. This is what it looks like. Here's a bag. Go out there. Don't come back till you get a snipe. Well, there's no such thing as a snipe. So they're sending them on a red herring or wild goose chase.
Just like you tell our team members to go get the daddy butter from
butter.
the store.
Yeah, and
porpoise milk.
Porpoise milk, powdered porpoise milk. I don't like the regular porpoise milk. I like the powdered porpoise milk. And one of my favorites is ankle cream and the head removal kit.
Okay.
So we tell them it's very important that you have that in the trunk of your car as a licensed realtor professional because you need to be prepared for those for those types of situation. Anyway, here's the point. You hear something on social media, somebody's sharing something with you. Don't take it as face value. Be polite, say, don't call BS right there in their face. But do some research, Google it.
Ask more questions. Go a little deeper.
Last thing I'll leave you with from the book, Psychology of Money. We make 80% of our decisions based on
emotion.
0.1% of what we know about money. Do the research, just like everything else in your life.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, we are going to take a short break, but stay with us. When we come back, we'll be talking with Laurel Starks, the founder and CEO of the Ilumni Institute. She'll talk to us about the best way to handle real estate during a divorce. Stay with us.
Come, my lady, come, my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar.
This is Scotty B from News Radio 830 KHVH. Hey, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's a friend of yours who's having a hard time selling their home. Well, be a real friend to them and tell them about Adrian and Attilio, the agents who guarantee to sell their home. Jerome Dunn was getting a PCS to a foreign country and, according to the comps, was going to lose a little money. Well, Adrian and Attilio engaged their advanced marketing techniques on his $500,000 Mike Kelly home, sold it for $36,000 over asking. So Jerome's actually able to walk away with a little extra cash. How about that? Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi of Team Lally Real Estate Group of Keller Williams Honolulu. They're so confident in their marketing strategy. If they don't sell your home at a price and deadline that you agree to, they're going to buy it. That's one of their guarantees. And life happens, so if needed, they'll even let you out of the contract at any time. Just a couple of more reasons to call my friends Adrian and Attilio. That's Team Lally, 799-9596, 799-9596, or online, teamlally.com.
Hey, it's Sean Hannity here, and I know the business climate has changed dramatically, but if you need to sell your home, don't believe the myth that homes aren't selling. Joining me now is a true expert at selling homes, Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi of Team Lally Real Estate Group of Keller Williams Honolulu. So what's your advice on selling a home right now?
Sean, our real estate team has always been on the cutting edge with technology. We're using FaceTime for showing homes with buyers and keeping our buyers and sellers safe with a virtual showing at any time and any place. We've sold hundreds of homes this way.
So what does that mean for sellers?
Sean, ignore the fake news. This is an incredible opportunity for sellers. Supply has plummeted. Demand has skyrocketed. People still have to move. We have thousands of motivated buyers ready to buy. We eliminate the tire kickers, conduct the virtual showing safely, quickly, and conveniently to sell their homes.
All right, thanks so much. Look, talk to the agent that I trust for the best advice. Call Team Lally now at 799-9596. Online at 808-GuaranteedSale.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corcoran. I hope every family will stay healthy and safe during these uncertain times. Our real estate market is experiencing many challenges every day. If you're planning to move or sell your home now, be sure to get the most current information from the best agent in your marketplace. In Honolulu, you should call Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi. You'll need an agent who is trusted in your community and understands your needs. Go online or call, and please stay safe.
The Team Lally Real Estate Show continues.
Give it to me, I'm worth it. Baby, I'm worth it.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening to the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the Guaranteed Sold program, or we'll buy it. I'm Adrian.
And I'm Attilio.
And if you have any questions, just give us a call at 799-9596 or check us out online at teamlally.com.
Our guest today is a recognized court-appointed expert and trained neutral in family law cases involving real estate matters. Her focus on divorce-related real estate has led to over 200 million in sales. I had to read that. It was such a big number. I had to back up a little bit. 200 million in sales volume throughout Southern California.
She is often regarded by her peers as the pioneer of the divorce real estate niche and is a national speaker on topics pertaining to real estate and family law. She is the founder and CEO of the Ilumni Institute. Please welcome our guest today, Laurel Starks.
Hey, Laurel.
Hi, guys. How are you? Aloha.
Aloha. Welcome. You know, when I see that name, the Ilumni Institute, I think it's like a secret order of priests that are storing priceless treasures in huge caverns underground in a secret location. But that's the Illuminati. Never mind.
We like to think of ourselves as a secret, private group of people who have excellent tricks in our bag.
Yes.
So, but we are not the Illuminati.
Yeah, so we're going to talk more about family law and real estate.
And speaking of this group, I know that when Attilio and I had gone through your training, there was about 75 of us nationwide. Is that still around the same amount, or have we had more agents that have committed?
Yeah, we do this. So we do our trainings twice a year, and so we've got our next class coming up in April.
Gotcha.
So that number will be growing, but we're growing slowly and steadily and not compromising any quality, which is our first and foremost commitment.
Yeah, you guys are kind of like the like the Navy SEALs. You're not just taking every Joe Schmo who wants to be a Navy SEAL. You're gonna pre-qualify them and then put them through a rigorous sleep deprivation training 3 nights in a row. No.
I did feel like there was some sleep deprivation. We were up early.
Yeah, because of the time difference.
Yes.
You all were.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. You all were up at I think you did have sleep deprivation. That's probably a very good analogy right there, actually.
So let's. We always like to, start from the beginning. How long have you been in the real estate? Been a realtor?
Going on 16 years.
16 years.
Just like us.
Okay,
Yeah.
but started right when Adrian started.
Oh,
So 16 years in 15 for me. So a long time in real estate. That's a long time because to put that in context for our listeners, if you take a look at any board of realtors across the nation, they usually renew every 2 years. So typically in the fifth year, probably about 90% of the realtors are gone back to the day job. So that says a lot if you've gone through 3 of those cycles and you're still there, bobbing at the top, and coming out of a pandemic. Good job.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you too.
So real estate, now segueing or sashaying into that niche of divorce and real estate. Tell us more. What is that?
Yeah, so it really is the crossover of family law and real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So in a divorce case, when two people, married couple, decides that they are going to part ways, if they co-own a house together, most of the time they'll, just go out and hire a regular realtor. They don't think much about who they are going to hire in terms of what their experience level is with their family. They kind of don't really take into account that the fact that they're going through a divorce is a unique process in the real estate, in handling their real estate. In other words, it's not like they're just selling a wheelbarrow and they're putting it on OfferUp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot that is tied to the house in divorce, and it really requires a specialty. So you guys know, as in real estate, when we have a real estate transaction, and we're representing sellers, our clients, our sellers, if we're representing, two people who are married, we assume that they get along, that they put out their own disputes, that they have the same goal as one another.
Yeah.
So in other words, we represent, and in fact, if you look on most contracts, it actually uses the singular. It says seller.
Mm-hmm.
Because in our world, it is presumed that the seller is one entity, one side of the transaction, And then the buy side is the opposing side of that transaction. And in a divorce case, our sellers are often opposed to one another. So we've got this conflict going on in one side of the real estate transaction. And that really complicates things.
Yeah.
And so it's important from a legal perspective as well as from a real estate perspective that we've got a good understanding of how those things cross over, how to identify and prevent conflicts, how to, work with a lot of high conflict behaviors, and then how also to ensure that there are not shenanigans that are going on. There's a lot of times there are. It's not uncommon for one spouse to try to manipulate or pull the wool over the other one's eyes or cheat and that kind of thing. So we have to make sure that we are aware of those things. That none of that stuff is present in a regular
and manage that.
In a regular listing. Yeah, how to manage it, and then there are court orders. There's a time when the court needs to be involved in certain things, and we need to know how to work within that.
So Laurel, like with all of these complexities that you were outlining, like what made you get into this niche, and then more importantly, become an educator and a speaker on the topic?
Yeah, I saw how people who were getting divorced were they were getting really they were getting screwed.
Yeah.
Because they were relying
don't sugarcoat it. Just give it to us straight.
Okay, good. They really were. I got into the business right at my business was ramping up right at the time that the market was crashing in '08. And so, it was when people are upside down on their mortgages, and we've got short sales going on, we've got loan modifications, we've got foreclosures, you've got, all kinds of things it was just a crazy time. And it was foreign to all of us, right? And what I saw in that moment was that lawyers, they were not up on all of the latest things going on in real estate, because real estate, you guys were in it, right? At the same time, real estate was moving very fast. It was a complete and utter, it was just chaos going on in our industry. And if you didn't live and breathe it real time, there's no way you could keep up on it. So it's not that I blame the attorneys, but I just know that they couldn't, because they weren't in it. And so what I saw was that there were remedies that divorcing homeowners had to them that lawyers didn't know about. And so lawyers were then advising their clients to do something that was going to cost them years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future.
Time
and I just
money.
saw this happening before. Yeah,
Time
I saw
and
this
money.
happening before my eyes.
Yeah, you were like the Maya Angelou for the attorneys, and her famous
Oh.
quote is, "When we know better, we can do better." And you were,
Well,
So
it is
you
true.
saw the opportunity to help the family law community.
Sure, and that still extends today. So even though we're not in that market anymore, we still have a lot of residual things that have still come out of that market that still plague it. But we're in a different market now.
well, here, you know what? But I want to point out what's similar. Back then, we noticed that because people were upside down in their properties facing foreclosure, the same external stresses that were put upon families created the divorce rate to climb. And so we were getting a lot of people that were going through divorce and facing foreclosure. And now it's a pandemic.
And losing jobs and not being able to pay the mortgage. Or
So here we are again.
What's going to happen when the forbearances are up.
Yeah.
So there's
Correct.
all of
There's
those things.
always something going on in real estate. We're a very dramatic industry. And so there's always something going on. The tide is always turning and shifting, and with that come new strategies and new solutions and new problems, right? So I saw that what was happening was costing people who are already down. And when you're getting a divorce, I mean, it is a financial atom bomb, really.
Yeah.
And in
as well
order
as
to
emotionally.
recover,
Yeah.
for sure, absolutely. And in order to recover, you've got to play your cards right during the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are going to pay a big, long price after the game is over.
Well, it's like playing a game and you don't know all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Correct. And you're listening to a football coach when you're playing a chess match, right?
Yeah.
So that was really why I got into it, and it's what drives me today.
Yeah.
Is to mitigate the damage that's done simply by taking knowledge that the Lallies have in real estate, and just bringing that knowledge to them.
Yeah, so let's talk to our family law attorneys, because I know they're all listening to the show. Every single one of them in the entire state of Hawaii that belongs to the board, to the bar. And here's the tools that you have provided to us to help educate them, and I'll have you speak on some of these. More importantly, the last one. But number one, and I'm going to go from small to big. So a tiny one. Mm-hmm. You've given us emails that we can send to them. The most recent email was how to replace the listing agent. I thought that was super informative. We sent it out on using BombBomb, and we can actually see who opened it. We got something like a 30% open rate. That's pretty amazing for an email.
Yeah, and that was just yesterday. They're all still sitting in their inboxes.
The scenario is like where that would come up, and I can see is like, the spouse's auntie is a realtor, and she just got her license yesterday. That's a recipe for disaster. So how do
maybe they're not being biased, unbiased.
So
in the situation.
Email.
Yep.
How to replace a listing agent in a real estate transaction. The second one, going a little bit bigger, quarterly newsletter. I thought that was very helpful. You guys, that we are again sending out to the family law attorneys.
Relevant information having to do with divorce and real estate. It's
mortgages,
interesting. Yeah. You got to know these things.
And then the last one that I want to talk about is the happy hour tequila sunrise special. No. It's called Raising the Bar. What is that, Raising the Bar?
So Raising the Bar is a monthly CLE series that the Ilumni Institute, which is the institute that provides and oversees the CDRE credential, which you all are both. Yes. It is the Ilumni Institute hosts a monthly CLE series called Raising the Bar, and it's sponsored by our CDREs. So for any of the attorneys out there listening, it is sponsored by the Lally the Lally team in Hawaii. And they can get you a special guest pass. But what it is, we provide a month. It is the fourth Wednesday of every month. And it's at the same time, so it's 12 p.m. Pacific in the 12 p.m. Pacific. So depending on whatever the time change is, that is in Hawaii 3 hours, sometimes I think 2 hours.
Yeah, so it'd be 9 or 10 a.m. our time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we have a featured speaker, and we educate. So today's was on credit damage in divorce, and we had a forensic credit expert who quantifies credit damage in divorce. Mm-hmm. So we, it was an extremely educational webinar today that we had, and then our attorneys, get 1 hour CLE for it.
Yeah, continuing law education. So two things.
And it's free for them.
Free for them if
they use our guest pass.
They use a guest pass.
Got to use the guest pass.
Otherwise, it's $55. Right.
$55.
That's a nice value.
So, good reason to. Hey, you know what? You guys want to, family law attorneys are like, how can we get more information on that? I'm so glad that I telepathically just read your minds through the radio. OahuDivorce.com. It's so easy that you can go to our website. What is, real estate and divorce in the resources section, or just remember OahuDivorce.com. Laurel, the Ilumni Institute, again, this is your one thing. For us too, talk about how you are keeping us on our toes as far as the continuing education and the learning process that we're going through. Describe that a little bit for the family law attorneys, so they know that. I think here's the thing that we realize is that, an attorney goes through years of school, spends way more money on their education. And then us realtors, in Hawaii, 60 hours. 60 hours. We jokingly say that a cosmetologist in Hawaii is a little bit sharper because they're 1,600 hours. So the person highlighting your hair might be a little bit sharper than the average realtor. But so it's going to be upon us to get educated on these particular types of niches. Talk about what you're teaching at this Ilumni Institute.
Sure. So first of all, we're an application-based.
Yes.
So we are not open to everyone. There's a minimum experience level that's required. There is also, we require, a resume, an essay, and then letters of recommendation from peers.
Yes.
And then we have an interview process. So just to get into the program it's very selective, so that we have the right people in who are truly experts and who are in it for the right reasons. Because let's be honest, there are a lot of people who are in it for the wrong reasons. They're ambulance chasers, and that's not what we are, and that's not what we're about. So we siphon out that, and then we have it's a 6-month training program, and it is taught by our faculty, which includes family law attorneys, a judge, and divorce mortgage expert, as well as myself. We teach on all topics ranging from the anatomy of divorce, so that our CDREs understand where they and the house even fit into a divorce case. We teach them about atros. We teach them about, court orders, ensuring that court orders are followed and that they get copies of court orders, et cetera, et cetera. And then we teach on bias, mediation. We have a very specific divorce listing process as well. We teach and train how to be an expert and qualify as an expert and testify as an expert. Those are the main things that we teach in our initial class. And then it goes on for another 6 months where we are monthly. We do case studies where we do a deep dive, and we pick apart different cases. We have learning labs, which just continues education on different topics as well. And then we have masterminds because, like you said, we're a small group of very powerful people throughout the country. And so for us we believe that learning and, iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. So we have monthly masterminds with one another where we are all learning from each other's experiences as well. So, when you put all of that together, you get some pretty amazing results and some pretty amazing professionals throughout the country that are here to serve divorcing homeowners. Well as their family law communities.
And I just want to insert that I finally mastered the secret handshake. Adrian, you had a question?
So Laurel, what are the big, just for our listeners, right, that maybe are facing this kind of situation, what are the biggest pitfalls that they could face if they did not connect up with an agent that is familiar with the family law process? What is the nightmares that you've seen?
Homer Simpson moment.
Yeah. No. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So a couple things. I take over about 50% of the listings that I take were listed by another agent, and they failed to sell for whatever reason. Because ordinarily it's because the agent. It's not because of the house. The house will sell. That's not the problem. The problem is that navigating these things. So a lot of times the reason that the number one reason that homes do not sell with an agent who is not trained is because that agent, they took sides. They then alienated the other party, and sometimes they didn't even do it intentionally. But they aligned with one side, alienating the other side. And when you've got two people on the same side of the transaction that both need to sign all the same documents, agreeing to all the same terms from the time we list all the way through close of escrow, if you've got one side that is that feels alienated and that doesn't put pen to paper and doesn't cooperate, then you've lost complete control of the listing.
Yeah.
So that is the number one mistake that agents make, and it is. And what happens is it costs clients money. So not only are they continuing to drag on, the sale of the house, maybe living in a toxic situation, but now if they've got lawyers, they've got to get their lawyers back re-engaged to get another realtor on the case. Maybe they have to go to court. It just costs a lot of money. So that is, that is a big pitfall that a lot of people, they just don't think that selling a house in a divorce is really any different than a realtor selling any other house. They don't think that, they don't think that through. And it's, believe me, as a practicing realtor, you guys can attest, it is night and day.
Well, and the big takeaway is no matter how hot the market is, all the bumps on the road are coming from the seller side, because think of the word divorce. The word divorce means to divide. It's not a word that you see at a peace conference or anything. So there, it's just inherent that conflict will be where we begin, and it's up to the training that you've provided us to help to allow us to mitigate that.
Yeah, navigate successfully.
In addition to the million things that you got to do in selling the home. So.
Right, absolutely. I mean, what if there's a domestic violence restraining order and the restrained person is living outside the house, and you've got the victim living inside the house, and yet you've got to have a lockbox, you've got to conduct open houses, you've got to have showings. It's a scary time.
Yes.
So, how is the realtor going to navigate that when the outspouse, they may demand that the realtor give them access to the property because they're their client and they own the house. So, that's just one example of many, 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 many that we see in our practices every day.
I think there's a lot of Latin phrases that we've had to learn. Curriculum vitae.
Yes.
I think you had like a test of a couple.
The
just
vocabulary.
Just the resume that's created to become an expert witness in the court system is completely different than the resume you used to go get a job. And you helped us with that. And,
sure.
And you've helped us understand and speak the family law lingo. So. Yeah,
it's important that when you're going to play the game, that you know the rules, that you can speak the language.
Yeah.
So, lawyers need experts that they can rely upon. And how much better is it when that expert already knows the language and those rules?
Adrian was just saying, before we're kind of getting to the end of our show here, but do you have any success stories or any kind of stories you wanted to share with us before we wrap it up?
Oh, my goodness. Really, every success story is every closing that we have. And that is not just me, but that is all of our CDREs throughout the country. When we are able to squeeze every penny out of the house that we can and maximize equity so that this family has every bit of resources that they can to start anew. And when we have put an end to a toxic household, even for children especially, every single time we do something like that, it's a success.
I think, too, we you've taught us, too, with the training in neutrality, that we end up almost becoming like Switzerland in this between the two parties attorneys, and or even managing the expectations of the buyer agent and the buyers. There's going to be a delay. Why? We're in escrow. Why can't we close? Well, the other party's not signing. But we're going to cancel. No, take it easy. Slow down. We got this under control. We got this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like that show where the plates are spinning on the stick, and you're running back and forth along the stage, making sure all the plates are continuing to spin through the process.
And I would add on to that, like, not only are we squeezing all the money out of the sale, there's also that, we're not having to continue to involve the attorneys on
Keeping
both
the legal
sides,
fees
keeping
down.
those legal fees down, that, when they don't need to be dragged into it. Yep.
Right. Lawyers shouldn't have to be dealing with whether or not a sign should go up or what the open house schedule is or, those kinds of things. They've got bigger fish to fry. Let them worry about those bigger fish. Let us worry about all of the minutia having to do with the sale of the house.
And the party
And we know when to bring them in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the party shouldn't be burning through the retainer to figure out when the sign should go up or down either. That's what us realtors are here to do, is to mitigate that and make things a little bit smoother so they're less costly and everybody kind of goes on their separate way and everybody's happy and less stressful.
That's exactly right. We're not here to give legal, I want to be clear that we're not here to step on the toes of, of your lawyer, and that that is a big, what's our saying? Stay in your lane, right?
Yes.
We say that all the time, stay in your lane. So that's another thing that CDREs know when something crosses over into getting legal advice.
Yeah.
And so we know, that's a lawyer question. Because remember, we don't bill by the hour. So we get a lot of questions.
Because we're free advice.
Yeah, and because they see it, right? And so there can just be, even little things like we recommend that, that a repair get done to the house, and it's going to cost $1,000. And the husband says, well, I'll pay the $1,000, but can I get credited that at the close of escrow, or can I get reimbursed that?
Yes.
Well, that's a lawyer question, right? So they can slip in. These little moments can slip in, and we have to know and recognize when it is a legal question for their lawyer. And so, that's, again, why a CDRE is vital in these cases.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Laurel, for being our guest today. It's always wonderful to hear from you and for educating our listeners. And hopefully we have some family law attorneys listening too.
Yeah, go to our page so we can be a resource. We're definitely going to have you on the show. But any last remarks there, Laurel?
I just, thank you to the Lallys. You all have invested a lot of time and a lot of money and a big commitment to serving the divorcing homeowners on the island of Oahu and to your own family law community. And so you all represent us. We're just thrilled to be partners with you in this, and you all represent us very well, and we're proud to have CDRE aligned with the Team Lally.
Yeah, so
thank you.
Yeah, family law people, go to our website. We're going to start promoting our March, Raising
CLE,
the Bar.
yep.
CLE.
CLEs. It's your free CLEs.
Coming to a theater near you.
That's right. Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you, Laurel.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. You all take care, and thanks again for all your work.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsors.
Jody Tonga and Derek Tonga of Pacific Rim Mortgage.
Bradley Mariama of Allstate Insurance.
Kenji Vendetta of Pillar to Post Home Inspections.
Janice Merland of Dream House Drafting.
John Speed with Kilauea Pest Control.
Duke Kim Han of Hawaii Pacific Property Management.
Kyle Shimoto, Impact Wealth Solutions.
Lindy Oshiro, who does reverse mortgages with Open Mortgage.
Robinson Villavere with Fine Line Paintworks.
And James Santiago of Kaji Cleaning.
If you want to get a hold of any of our sponsors, just go to teamlally.com.
We also want to give a big thank you to Leah Rodriguez, our producer here in the studio.
Chee-hoo.
Make sure to tune in next week. We'll have an awesome guest talking about something that'll change your life
forever. This is the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the guaranteed
sold program. If we can't sell your home at the agreed upon price in our time frame, we'll have it bought for cash.
Be safe and aloha.
The preceding program was sponsored by Team Lally.